Alright, let's start putting this project together. Let's start by creating a new file, blank workbook, and I'm going to, we see the original example has two worksheets, this task Gantt example sheet and settings. So let's go ahead and create another sheet in our project file and rename the first one to match the first sheet. And I believe you're not allowed to have spaces in sheet names in Excel. And right click and rename on the second sheet. Call that settings. And I'm going to shrink this down a little bit so we can see both sheets at the same time. And I'm going to go to my settings. And you can see I have 5 tables here. If I'm going to talk a little bit about these tables. I'm just using these in this project to have some extra data that I'm going to use in the main application in the Task Gantt example sheet. So I'm going to put these tables in this settings. If I were using a table to share data with other applications, you know, where I had a table and multiple columns, I would most likely put the table on its own sheet and start in cell A1, you know, with the first column, and then set up my table with the data. And that would be better for sharing in other places. Like if I was going to use another application like maybe Python and open and use that data. But in this case where I'm just collecting some data in some different tables, I'm going to put these tables in the same worksheet. You'll notice that I have these separated by columns with no data in there. That keeps Excel from assuming that you want all of the data in the same table. And you'll see why as we progress through this project, how we use these different small tables with these data. In all of these, with the exception of the first one, the status, assignee, task group, and holidays, these categories may change or the list may get longer. And so I have these separated out. You don't want to stack tables on top of each other because that could make things a little challenging if you enter data and it starts growing past the original length of the table. So we'll just start here and create these headings that we had. So in cell B2, we're going to next ID. In the other worksheet, we use an ID column and give each task an ID number. And this is a handy way to see what the next available ID number is. You don't want to reuse ID numbers, so you have conflicts that way. So that's what we're going to use that for. We'll have status in F2, assignee in H2, task group, and in J2, holidays. We're going to leave the next ID table alone for now, and we'll do the status. And these are just some common task statuses that you'll use. And as I said, you could potentially change these. And go ahead and select the column. If you hover between the columns, you'll see there's your cursor changes and you see this line with 2 arrows. I like to double click on that, and that will just expand the column to fit the text that's in the cells in the column. And we're going to turn this into a table by clicking somewhere in the data there. And if we go to Insert and Table, you'll see that Excel can tell where we have data, but we do want to make sure that Excel understands that the first row is a header. So I'm going to click on that little box there and hit OK. And you'll see it automatically gives it a name of Table 1. And I'm just going to change that name to something more descriptive so I know what this is later on, because we're going to have multiple tables and some different names we're going to work with. So I'm going to call this status table. Right, so under assignee, you may have a project where you have multiple people and you want to keep track of who's assigned what tasks. For right now, I'm just going to put me in there and make that a table also. So we'll click inside of the data, go to Insert Table, and again, check on the Has Headers checkbox, hit OK, and rename this to Assignee Table. Again, I believe the table names can't have spaces in there, so I'm just using camel case where different words are capitalized. And the task group, I'm just going to use a simplified where I used some forward and backward examples and put that in there. And click in there. Let's make that one a table by clicking Insert Ribbon, Table, Has Headers, and call that the task group table. And holidays, I'm just going to copy this list of holidays and I'm just going to take the values. You can search online and look for an Excel sheet with a list of holidays. Use your own. This one I happen to be using an academic calendar, so it has some additional holidays than just regular federal holidays, you know, like fall break and spring break. You'll see when I pasted these values in that this is just a regular number, and this is part of how Excel works with dates. But I just need to go and format these as a date, and you'll see the Excel switches the format to match. So if we right click on there and go to Format Cells, we can select under the Number tab Date, and this is using a month, day, year format. That looks good. I'll click OK, and you'll see we have our dates there. Now we can select inside of the table that we want, Insert Table, and table has headers, and I'm going to hit OK. And now we have holidays. So the nice part of using tables like this is we can actually refer to these names of these tables to get data from them. If you click on the Formulas ribbon, which is kind of in the middle of the ribbon menus here, and in the middle of the Formula ribbon there's a Name Manager, and if you click on there you'll see that we have the names of our tables there, except for the task group table, which I didn't rename, so let's close that and go here to the task group table, and you'll see when you click inside, when you are out of a table there's nothing there, but when you click into a table you'll see you get this table design ribbon that pops up, and if we take a look at that, we have that Oh, maybe it was the holidays table that I didn't rename. Okay, it was the holidays table. So let's go rename that to holidays table. Okay, if we go back to our formula ribbon and the name manager, you'll see now that we have all of our name tables. This is very convenient. If we went to put a formula and we started typing the name of one of our tables, you'll see that we get this holidays table. And you can actually refer directly to a column in a table by using a square bracket, and you'll see that this first, you would get a list of the columns in your table. In this case, we only have one column, so it's right there. And if we put in holidays and a square bracket to close it and hit enter, you'll see that we get the data from this column. And we're going to take advantage of this later. You will see that since this is a range, that this does spill out of that cell. If you see the top cell, it has our name of our table and column, and if you look in a cell below, it's grayed out. If you happen to have something in one of the cells that would that data would fall into, you'll see you get this message for spill, meaning that the content of this is longer than it can display. If you take that back out, it will display the data. These tables and these names of the tables columns are a great way to refer to some things. We're going to go one step further and simplify these names even a little bit so we can refer to it a little easier in some of the formulas and conditional formatting that we're going to use later on in the project. So I'm going to go back. I'm just going to click in a cell and go to the name manager, and we're going to create some additional names for these things, because we will refer to all of these lists with some formulas later. So in the name manager, I'm going to click on new, and we're going to make a new name, and let's start with status. Just call it status list, and we're going to refer to our status table, square bracket, status column. And you'll notice as I type this, I do not get my autocomplete help in this menu from Excel. So that is one bit that's a little bit extra challenging when using these menus, is you do need to know the name of the thing that you're looking at. So I already knew that, so I'm just going to use it. We're going to hit OK. And you see I have this new name here, status list. Let's hit close. And now I can, if I type in the name of this, the beginning of this name, you'll see my status list comes up in the options there. And if I use it, again, I get that data. Might be helpful when you're creating these other names. You could click in there and see the name of the table there. Except we're going to go to formulas and the name manager to create a new name. So I'm just going to create new, and I know that the name that I'm going to use here is assignee list. And if you are clicked in the table, it does automatically give you the text down here though, so you don't necessarily have to remember that. So that's a useful trick. So assignee table, assignee, that looks correct. Let's hit OK. Let's go to the task group, name manager, new, and call that task group list, and oh, it didn't give me the table name. And let's try holidays, see if we get any luck here. Nope. So we'll call this one holidays list and make that holidays table, holidays column, and hit OK. So now we should have an assignee list, a holidays list, status list, and task group list. And if we tried one of those out, let's try equals holidays list and hit enter. We get all of our holidays there. So that, I'm going to go ahead and just delete these columns where I was showing you those. Works well. Go ahead and let's save this file and give it a name. I might suggest, since this project is a little bit longer and complicated, maybe just save the file after each section with a little different name, and that way if you make a mistake or accidentally delete a cell or a formula, you can go back to the middle starting point, you know, of the last file that you created. So let's go save this file, save as, and let's call this we're going to put this in our folder. Let's call this Gantt chart project settings. Hit save. And let me check my list, see if there's anything else that we're going to do in this part. You can, a nice part about these tables is if you add more data to the bottom, it automatically adds that to the table. You can see my new thing is there. You can actually insert in the middle. So if I right clicked in this row and went to insert and insert table row above, and you added that in, you'll see that my data gets automatically updated there. And when managing these tables, you can, if there's a row you want to get rid of, you can right click on there and go to delete and table row, and you'll notice it just affects that table and did not affect anything else in the other rows there. And we can delete that table row, delete table row. So there are some helpful things about using tables for managing some things like this with some list maintenance and automatic updating. Okay, let's go ahead and just get rid of that. Make sure we save this. And that should be everything for the formatting on the settings sheet so far. We'll end here.